Zvíkov, Czech, Rad Zvíkov, German, Klingenberg, often called the King of Czech Castles, 1, is a castle in Zvíkovsk Podhradí municipality, about 15 kilometers, 9 miles, north of Písek in the South Bohemian region of the Czech Republic. It stands on a difficult-to-access and steep promontory above the confluence of the Vltava and Otava rivers. The castle is one of the most important early Gothic castles in Czech lands. The area was inhabited as early as prehistoric times, when the Celts built a fort here in the 1st century AD. The current castle was built in the first half of the 13th century, most probably on the orders of King Otakar I, but the exact date is not known. The first written mention of the castle comes from year 1234 and owned by the kings of Bohemia. History. Zvíkov Gatehouse and Tower. Originally a small complex, the castle was continuously extended until 1278. After the Přemysl dynasty died out in 1306, Zvíkov became property of the Rosenberg family. After 1337, the settlement under the castle has been fortified, as a part of thorough repairs. Its fortifications were so strong that even the Hussites, during the Hussite Wars, besieged it for 4 months in 1429, but found it a tough nut to crack and failed to take it. To protect against heavy artillery, its walls were further strengthened. Although Emperor Charles IV placed it on a list of royal castles not to be pawned, his successors ignored his decree, and by 1431 it was in the possession of the Rosenberg family. At the start of 30 Years' War, Zvíkov was owned by a rebellious Protestant nobleman whose garrison of 140 men successfully defended the castle against 4,000 Habsburg troops in 1618. The defendants agreed to capitulate to the emperor's forces only in October 1622. Subsequently, it was looted and devastated. During the 1640s, the Schweinbergs modified the palace and extended it in Renaissance style. After the damage inflicted by the war, Zvíkov was restored, but its glory was long gone and the castle served only for farming purposes. A fire accelerated the deterioration of its buildings in 1751. Thus, a once important seat of Czech kings, it had become an almost ruin by the 1840s, at which time the Schwarzenbergs, owners of the ruin, invested huge sums in a thorough reconstruction, which restored the heart of the castle to its former glory. At the end of 17th century, it ceased to have military value and was used as granary. The decline continued, and in 1751 fire damaged a large part of the palace. In 1780 the chapel was deconsecrated. The facade of the palace collapsed in 1829, and between 1880 and 1902 the castle was reconstructed, only to be confiscated by the state in 1947. The Orlik Dam, which was built between 1954 and 1962 and named after Orlik Castle, deluged the castle downtown and made Zvíkov easily accessible. Major restorations between 1970 and 1980 concentrated on the palace. The oldest part of Zvíkov is a massive prismatic residential tower named Hlazova with palace buildings built on its sides. During the reign of Otakar II of Bohemia, a palace named Královský, King's Own, was built, and this ground plan has been preserved until today. The new palace was built in lavish style and its parts were connected by monumental arcade. After 1473, Bohuslav of Schweinberg commissioned mural decorations in the chapel of St. Wenceslas, which belongs to the masterpieces of early Gothic Czech architecture. The walls display the patron saints of Bohemia, the Virgin Mary the Protector, the Suffering Christ, and the martyrdom of Saint Erasmus. The fortification was extended with Hlaska, large 32-meter, 105 feet, high tower, Burgfrit, on the south side. The castle has 2 gates. The castle has its own ghost, Zvíkov's Imp, 3, and had inspired several painters and writers like the theatrical comedy Zvíkovský Rarasek by Ladislav Strupasnicki. Today, Zvíkov, opened from spring to autumn, is hiking attraction and serves as a place of art exhibitions and stage plays. The history of Zvíkov Castle began with the royal house of Přemyslovec. Zvíkov is an outstanding example of Czech medieval secular architecture. The initial construction of Zvíkov took place during the rule of Wenceslas I, 1230 to 1253. Written records mention Konrad, founder of the Lords of Janovice, as burgrave of the castle in 1234. Zvíkov was a favorite of King Wenceslas I, who often stayed here. Přemysl Otakar II eventually ruled the Czech lands, 1253 to 1278, and continued construction of the castle. He appointed Hirza as the Zvíkov burgrave in 1250. Under Hirza, the main construction of the inner area began, including the royal palace and the surrounding fortifications. In 1306 the house of Přemysl died out with the assassination of Wenceslas III in Olomouc, so the castle was ceded to Henry of Rosenborg. The castle obtained its greatest fame under Charles IV, who had it thoroughly renovated. Until Karlsten Castle was completed, Zvíkov served as a sanctuary for the crown jewels. The importance of Zvíkov as an eminent royal castle diminished when this distinction was lost. Soon afterwards, the castle began to change hands frequently, as it was given as a pledge for service or monetary loans. Zvíkov was most often exchanged between two prominent and wealthy families, the Lords of Rosenborg and the Lords of Svamberg. In 1429, while in the possession of Emperor Zikmund, the castle was besieged by the Taborites during the Hussite Wars. It was not conquered at that time. In 1437, Lord Oldrich of Rosenborg, leader of the Catholic nobility, obtained the castle from the emperor. Zvíkov remained a royal castle once again until 1575, when King Maximilian II sold it to the Lords of Svamberg, as noted in the Register of Landed Property. The royal castle at the confluence of the Vltava and the Otava rivers. Zvíkov Castle is located on a high promontory above the Vltava and Otava rivers, near the Orlik Dam. Thanks to its specific location, the tourists are awaited by many beautiful and romantic views of the surrounding countryside. Zvíkov has a long history. Since its foundation in 1226, it has been associated with the royal family of the Přemyslovec and is one of the foremost buildings of Czech medieval secular architecture. Visitors can look forward to preserved and reconstructed halls, including historical paintings and furniture. They can take a peek into the cellars, visit the terraces overlooking the confluence of the rivers or the chapel decorated with mural paintings. There is also an exhibition with local archaeological findings. You can also visit the Hlazova Tower, which is the oldest preserved building on the castle grounds. It dates back to around 1240. Unlike other similar places, you can walk through the castle freely without a guide, navigated by arrows. Entry is possible immediately after the ticket is purchased and no reservation is required. There are texts in Czech, English, German, Dutch, Russian, Italian, Polish and French all the way along the route.